This is Brian at Synchronicity, and today I am joined by Dr. Ashley Bullock of Modern Minds. Ashley, we're so excited to have you with us here today talking about some relationship issues that maybe some of us are experiencing during this quarantine. I'd love for you just to introduce yourself to our group a little bit, maybe tell them a little bit about you.
Great, thanks, Brian. This is so fun. I'm Dr. Ashley Bullock. I'm a psychologist here in Charleston, and I am a psychologist with Modern Minds. We're a new clinic that is yet to open this summer, planning on opening this summer. And we are a very special clinic where we're integrating physical and mental health. And so at that clinic, we're focused on kind of what we're focusing on here today, how to be stronger, how both physically as well as mentally, and this time during COVID where we're all, dealing with really unprecedented stressors, unprecedented, world events, economic events, social events, that we're really finding new ways to come together, both as colleagues, as professionals in the community. We're doing Zoom, which is so funny. Brian's like the size of my computer screen right now, which is awesome.
That's terrifying.
You're like, I don't know how many inches it is, but it's like probably 2 feet. And there's Brian. So it's awesome. But it's really special because this is my home office, and it's nice to, welcome you into my home office as well as our viewers today. And so I'm really excited to be here and to talk about, some of the stressors as well as some ways to get through it stronger.
I think that is a topic for the day, right? So we're all in this quarantine, right? And I'm going to speak, pretty much to sort of our close-knit, intimate relationships right now. And I have no doubt that some of these relationships are thriving in the circumstances, and some of them are rubbing up against a bit of extra friction during this. And I'd love for you to speak to maybe a little bit some of the habits that can lead us one way or the other.
Yeah, that's a good question. And thinking of synchronicity, thinking of your focus, and probably many of the folks who are watching today are really keened in on and focused on physical health. And, the factors that enable physical health also enable mental health. And, some of the top things I was thinking about that are provide physical health, and Brian, I'm sure will have, additions to this. But I think of vitality, I think of when you're strong physically, you have vitality, you have energy, you have aliveness. You also have the ability to tolerate strain, right? So thinking of weightlifting, you're able to hold something that's heavy. I think of flexibility and endurance. And so, physical health, how does that translate to mental health? How does that, for our topic of discussion today, translate to relational health?
Right.
And so, I came up with, a couple ideas that I'm calling the 4 S's.
The 4 S's. So this is going to be our relationship hacks?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So the idea of how to be stronger, how to have strength. I think the first one, or I'll mention all 4 of them, that we can touch on briefly and then go into discussion, but space, softness, self-care, which we've all heard a lot about, and seriousness. So, those I think are sort of 4 ideas we can organize ourselves around when we think about relational health. And,
Cool.
I'd like to try to map that onto physical health as we're talking too.
I think that sounds like a plan. Which S are we going to start with?
Let's start with space.
Space it is.
Space it is.
Which is at a premium right now.
Yes. But so, one of the neat positive things about this time is that we've been able to create new spaces, right? Even with the social distancing, we've been able within 6 feet to visit with neighbors, to over Zoom, creating new spaces over the computer. We're reaching over geographical spaces more. But so that's kind of been fun, stressful for some, but fun. I think some of the space issues with your partner or spouse are maybe more difficult, which you alluded to before, because it's at a premium, right? You're at home, I'm at home, my husband works, we have 2 kids. space, I kicked them out of the house so that I could hear today.
Right, 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 right.
Like because space is a premium. But so there's physical space, but then there's emotional space, right?
Mm,
And so I think, part of this time is finding new emotional spaces within yourself, but also with your partner. Um, and part of that is for one, knowing your spouse, knowing their emotional needs, and giving them the space that they might need. So for you, I know it's running, right? You
yeah,
love to go for your morning run. That's how you reset. And so, that would be important for your partner, your wife, to allow you to have that time. For her, it may be different, right? It may be that she watches Netflix or has that Zoom party with her friends.
yep,
So giving her that space to do that, even if it's not your thing. So it's
got it,
knowing each other, giving each other space to do those things that enable us to take care of ourselves.
got it.
And then, also finding new spaces to be together.
Ashley, I'm so sorry you cut out on that one. I feel
Oh,
like I missed it.
oh,
Yeah,
sorry. So, also finding new spaces to be together,
got it.
right? So
New
you can't
spaces.
go on date night, right? The, but so how do we do that now? How do we have space for fun? How do we have space, not just, okay, this is work, this is homeschool, this is cleaning time. How do we, create a space to just be a couple?
Right. Well, my wife and I had a very exciting thing this weekend, and that we dropped the kids off at my mom's. We're fortunate because we've all been together through the quarantine, and then
Right.
we cruised the neighborhood drinking iced teas, checking out the different houses. It was wildly exciting, but actually, it was really important because we set that time aside and we
Right.
really talked about these things. A lot of these, you made the point of creating emotional space, and sometimes, I know I've been with my wife for 15 years. We've been together for over 20. And sometimes you get to these patterns and you think so much.
Right.
And I find it so helpful just to ask, right?
Yes, I love that. And that's so important. The Gottman
Yeah,
Institute
sure.
out west, their research is really, just the best. And they've been studying relationships and what works, what doesn't, what predicts a successful relationship, what predicts divorce. And so a lot of their research really informs my work. And one of the things, the foundation, they came up with this sound house theory. So
Sound
it's
house.
sound house. So the foundation of the house is a love map,
Mm,
right? And so that's knowing your spouse. And what's really important about what you just said is that we change over time, right?
right.
And so you may have known her for 15 years, but that how you can probably predict, okay, in this kind of stressful situation, she's going to become a neat freak and clean all the time or whatever. But how it might be affecting her still might be different. And there may be new things that she's trying that to cope with. And so, being curious, having that space to ask, as you said.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, you made the mention at the beginning about, physical health. And, that's a lot of what I'm about, especially here at
Yeah.
Synchronicity and Wellness. And so I know, like combining these things, like going on a walking date, right? And checking in. And it's such a great thing to do. I know
Yes.
we see couples in our neighborhood doing that with each other, with their kids, more so than maybe I've ever seen in our little neighborhood here in Mount Pleasant before.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Same for me. I'm on James Island, and it's so special too seeing teenagers walking with their parents because they would never do that
Right,
otherwise.
right, right, right. So how about on the other end of it? We'll get to the other S's,
Yes.
but
Yep.
how about on the other end of the space thing? So we were talking about physical space,
Yes.
emotional space here. What kind of habits, could put us in a little bit of a shaky foundation? Anything jump to mind?
Interesting. Not giving, one thing is having a wall between each other is important, like when you're doing work and also not having to do everything together.
Yep,
Some couples may become really enmeshed during this time that they have to do everything together.
yep,
No, you don't have to do everything together. Having space, you're in this room for a couple hours doing your work. I'm in this space.
yep,
Also, not setting aside time to be together, right? Some folks, some of the stressors or patterns pre-COVID are coming up now. So if I was a workaholic before, right? And I just worked, that's probably happening now too. But it's just like even worse because it's bleeding into the home life, So,
Right. I
um,
think you mentioned to me once that up to like 70% of problems are things that have been there for a long time. Is that correct? Was that the stat you quoted me?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that's from the Gottman Institute. Some of their research has shown that, and part of so exactly that, you know, it's important not to blame COVID for
Right.
everything right now. I think, what I've noticed and been working and my clients have been noticing is that it's the same problem as before. It's just being magnified now. And
Yep.
so, I think it can be helpful to know that if it's coming up now, that's because the personality differences and also our emotional history differences, traumas people have had, and that sort of points back to that love map, knowing your spouse, and also taking this time to prioritize your relationship.
Right. So check my thinking on this. If
Yes,
I've got these problems and they're magnified, right? They come up again, and maybe they've been here since the origins of my relationship, right? I'm asking for a friend, not for me. I'm asking for a friend, right?
right.
But they but they've been there since the beginning of our relationship, and they're coming up again. Um, is that a danger sign? Oh no, you haven't resolved these relationship issues. Your relationship is doomed for failure.
It's a good question. Honestly, it could be it's important. If it's coming up, it means it's important. So one thing is if problems are coming up and the ones that are recurring, right? Because of our personality differences, because of our history differences, the key is how we handle it, right?
Yeah.
And so that sort of leads me to the second S, which is softness, right? So one of the key successful habits in a relationship is handling your spouse, handling a conflict with gentleness,
Yeah.
softness, and finding a way to move beyond attacking or criticism or the opposite, silence, right?
Right.
Those are the two big things is criticizing or turning away and not even responding.
Yeah.
So finding a way, and that makes me think of space too, instead of being like a hard edge, how to round it out a little bit, and find humor,
Yeah.
but basically that idea of finding softness. And um, so for the stuff that's recurring is really important to how we manage it. The other piece is there are things that have happened in the past in relationships that are kind of like wounds that haven't been addressed, you
Yeah.
know? And, with a lot of couples who come in and have a lot of times they've been holding stressors 15, 16, 25 years,
Yeah.
and they've never addressed the affair that happened 15 years ago or the job the person took 10 years ago and, left the family or whatever it might be, or ways in which people feel that the other person wasn't there for them.
Yeah.
So those wounds, if that's recurring, that we have to set aside time to process that to because it can heal. None of those things I listed
Right.
have to mean divorce,
Right.
but
See,
we do have to process it.
that's such an important point. I think is that we can work through things, right? We can, and maybe even during this time when maybe some of us have more time than we've had in a while, we can actually prioritize these things and say, hey, what can we do to move
Exactly.
forward, right? And it sounds like space and softness are two of the key skills that can help us get there.
Exactly. Yes, yes.
And I
Um,
also think I also think like softness is it's not just for the other person, but it's for ourselves too, right?
yes, I'm so
It's
glad
just
you said that.
it's so hard to be really soft and tender with somebody else when we're inside just critiquing and whipping ourselves, right?
Yes. And that's exactly how we know when we're not soft. That's when we know we're not self caring enough,
Yeah.
which to the third S, right? The self care piece is so key. If I'm getting in an argument with my husband, it's usually because there's something that is unsettled in me that I haven't taken care of. And that's what all the research shows, right? That self-soothing is so key in conflict in a relationship, um, that a lot of times when there's a conflict, it's like we forget ourselves. You get ungrounded, and
Yeah.
suddenly you're acting like the person you're not. You know, you're attacking. You're saying hurtful things when that's
Yep.
not how you are. You know, that's not how you want to be.
Right.
So when you feel that heart, that rigidity, or if you feel chaotic and you're saying things that you wouldn't normally, um, that's a really good, indication. Okay, I got to take care of myself. I got to take a break.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's such, and again, that's, people, my background is exercise primarily and the integration
Right.
of that into our lives. And for me, in order to have that softness, in order to have that, I have to do those wellness activities. They're the things that allow me to sort of be able to step back and have a buffer so that I can interact in a softer way. For me, I just know myself, and that's what works. That combined with meditation, it's not just about losing weight or being healthy. It's about showing
Right.
up every day the way I want to at work and my
Yes.
relationships. It's so important.
Well, and part of what helps you by having that routine is then the translation of that into the moment, right? Because we know, most of us aren't going to become Buddhist monks, right? And
Right,
meditate
right.
all day, right? It's really about learning how to practice these things even when we're in the heat of the moment. And that's a question clients always ask, like, okay, I got it while we're talking here. I understand. But when I get triggered, when my husband says that thing, or I feel attacked or misunderstood, you know, I don't remember any of those things that we just talked about, right?
Right. Isn't that
Yeah.
thing in yoga class? I'm sure, I know you've taken yoga
Yeah.
classes, and it's always, can we take this off the mat, right? Can we take
Yes.
what we're doing here and put it into that aggravated relationship, or when I'm short on sleep, or when I'm hungry and then I have an interaction?
Yes. And so the key to that, Brian, is really recognizing in the moment your own body, right?
Mhm.
When we get in arguments, we're stuck in our head. We're thinking, and it's usually we're been triggered in some way, and um, our self-concept is injured or something, um, and so being able to drop into your body and know whatever it is for you, right? For me, it's like my voice gets raised a little bit, I'm talking too fast, it's a little bit pressured, um, like that's a sign for me. Everybody's got them, and knowing, okay, I need to drop into my body and take a break. Um, and it's interesting. One of the early Gottman studies showed that one of their first experimental studies showed by giving a couples a 20-minute break,
Mhm.
enabled them to drop into self-soothing. And they did all these biological markers, and
Yeah.
it was as if the couple had had a brain transplant. Their brain's reactivity was so different just after 20 minutes.
So,
And
so
so
what you're telling everybody is that an adult timeout can be very effective.
yes,
Is
yes,
that correct?
exactly.
All
Yes.
right.
And it's not 10 seconds.
Right.
I never tell people 10 seconds. I'm not even breathing again by 10 seconds if
Yeah.
it's
Right.
me,
Right.
you know?
Right.
I think we should apply what we do to the kids, right? Like my 5-year-old, it's 5 minutes,
Right. Right.
right?
Oh,
You
God, I
know?
like that.
So, so I'm
I can
40,
totally see
so
that.
that
By my
means,
eighth decade of
yeah.
right, by my eighth decade, I'm going to need at least an hour and 20 minutes. I can
Right,
tell.
exactly. That's like 2 Netflix shows. Sorry, sorry, honey, I gotta go watch TV for 2 hours. No, that's really bad advice, but you know what I mean.
Right, totally. So we've got the first three S's, right? We've got self-care, we've got softness, and we've got space. All of these we can sort of develop some habits around, I think, if we were creative, right? How
Yes.
about the last S?
The last one is seriousness.
Seriousness. All right. Something that I do
Seriousness.
not excel at.
That's not true. It's, but I think for a lot of people, we take our work seriously, we take our kids seriously. For a lot of folks who might watch this, like, people are working, people have kids, we're busy, and even if you're single and you don't have kids, you have, other things that you're motivated towards, and what really oftentimes gets put on the back burner is our partner or our spouse.
Yeah.
um, and so this is really a time where we can And I think a lot of people are feeling that where you're home, you know, and
Right.
it's like you're one of four people I talk to every day. So it's like we're forced to take people seriously, and that's a good thing. Um,
Right. Uh,
um, yeah.
so can you give me an example of what would be a habit that would demonstrate I'm taking my relationship seriously?
I think it's different for each person, right?
Hmm.
In each relationship, but I think setting aside time
Hmm.
is important. Another one that research shows is really key is how you respond to a bid is what the Gottman folks talk about, a bid. So if
A bid.
someone says, "Hey, it's a nice day today." If your wife says that, "Hey, it's a nice day today." Um, red flag is if you don't say anything,
Got it.
right? Or you mock her or something and say, "It's not that nice. What are you talking about? Yesterday was nicer." Right?
Okay.
So responding, right? So moving towards a bid. So yeah, oh let's look out the window. Oh yeah, look at our neighbor, responding and moving towards that bid for closeness, that bid for communication.
Got it.
Um,
So step one is just acknowledging, right?
Acknowledging, right. And I
Right.
think when I think of physical health too, and especially with strain, with like weight tolerance,
Hmm.
that it's small steps, right? So if I'm going to go start weightlifting today, I'm not expecting myself, I'm not expecting my husband, to lift 500 pounds.
Yeah.
I might start with 5 pounds. So I think that's really important. I think sometimes our self help stuff kind of throws people in the deep end.
Yeah.
And I think really, if people are feeling strain or if you've been emotionally distanced, if you've been leading parallel lives, small things, just responding to those little bids.
Got it. So this is a random question, but I'm really
Yeah.
a sort of a data feedback person. Like I want to know what my step count is every day.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like to see it over the course of 5 years, and it's just the way I'm made, right? Is there a way to apply some sort of feedback mechanism to these small steps that I can see? I mean, does that even make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing about being in a relationship, right,
Mhm.
is there's another person who can give you feedback all the time, right? So,
Yes. Yes.
I think it's while that can be a source of conflict sometimes because you might feel like you've been really present and she might be like, uh,
Right. That, oh, yeah, that has happened. That has
yeah.
happened.
But that's feedback, right? I mean,
Right.
that's very helpful to know, okay, when I check in with you in the morning while we're drinking coffee, that doesn't really feel like a bid to you. That feels just like I'm part of your routine.
Got it.
It could be that she might say that. I don't know. I think asking and figuring out how your actions are lining up with how they're being received is helpful.
Right? That's a good way to combine all those S's, right? The space and the softness and the seriousness. Actually asking, setting aside some time and some space, and asking about what
Yes.
somebody else needs. Right?
Yes. Yes. And I mean, that's the number one thing, Brian, right? Couples, we think, you've been married 15 years, we touched on this earlier, but we think we know the other person. So we make assumptions. And a lot of times for people, they don't ask, how someone is feeling. They don't check in because they're afraid. They think they should know.
Yep.
Like, I should know how my husband's handling working from home. I should just know because we've been married for so long. No, it's actually the act of asking him that we can feel closer, that he can feel like Ashley cares.
Right.
If I say, "What's it like for you doing remote work? Do you like
Right.
that?" Or,
That's
so
such
I
a
think,
great point. Yeah, it's such a great point. I and especially the over time, and you made a reference to this earlier, how we change over time. My kids they're 11 and 8, and I see them every year changing, and they're
yeah,
learning new things, they're becoming new people. But for some reason, with a spouse, you're like, oh yeah, that person is pretty much the same as it, and it's just not true, right?
it's not right.
But so setting aside that time is just so great. What a great idea.
Yeah, so I think tips are hard, but I think asking your spouse every day, how are you feeling today? And because I think that everybody's a little bit more in a roller coaster right now because there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think everybody's sort of seeing how we settle ourselves oftentimes by the external certainties,
Yep.
and that's not there. Like, I don't know if I am going to ever go to a gas station again. No, not that dramatic, but you know
Right.
what I mean? I don't know if I'm going to go
Sure.
to the office next week. I don't know that.
Right.
And so that can, yeah.
And these check-ins, I'm just thinking, I'm going to think strictly from my male perspective for a minute on these check-ins.
Yeah.
Like, to me, sometimes a check-in is like, uh-oh, is that person worried about me? Why are they worried about me? And so forth. What am I doing that makes that person worried about me? And then I get up in my own head, rather than it just being about a check-in, because
Yes.
I care and I want to see how you're doing, right? There's nothing to be worried about.
Yes. Right. So after you ask the question, stay for a couple minutes. Yeah.
Right.
It's
Right.
not the like, hey, how are you to your neighbor, and you just keep going. Everybody is stopping more, even with neighbors, right?
They really are, yeah. And in so many ways, the community has gotten somewhat tighter. People say hi more, even if it's 6 feet away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we've got these wonderful S's. I just want to remind everyone what they are. We've got
Yes.
space, we've got self-care, we've got softness, and we've got seriousness, right? And all of these are sort of cues that we can use, which, by the way, I love the fact that you came up with 4 S's because it matches our synchronicity logo. Well done.
Yes.
Thank you for that. But it's such a great way for us to remember and really incorporate these habits, sort of try to formulate some habits into our relationship right now
Yeah.
that would be useful in building them. Any other last minute advice here? We got a few more moments with people that you could say your years of working as a therapist that you could share with them about their relationships.
Yeah. I think, one thing that I've been thinking about is we don't know how life is going to change, you know, um, and it's easy to get stuck on that. And I
Yeah,
think it might be helpful to think not just about how will life change in that negative way, but really asking ourselves and talking to our partners about how do we want our life to change.
mm.
What are some of the things we've noticed about ourselves and about our relationships during this time? Like, oh, like for me, I'm late. I'm 15 minutes late going down the stairs, like for my time to homeschool. And like, I was always about 15 minutes late coming home from work, So it's like, that's a thing, you
Yeah,
know? And
yeah,
so,
totally.
I've been, trying to think through and with my husband of how do I want to change that?
Yeah,
I want him to know I'm going to be on time.
right.
Um, and so, but other things, like that connection people might feel now that they didn't before, those parallel lives people might have had going to work and just, in the gridlock, and now realizing, okay, wait, we're a little more connected. How can we maintain that even when we do go back to more of our normal routine?
Absolutely. I think you're dead on. It gave a lot of people time, maybe in a very hard way for a lot of us, right? Time to sit back and say, what do I want to take control of? How do I want to be as intentional as I can possibly be in my life, right?
Right.
And that's such an empowering place to be, right? To not be at the whim of whatever routine and
Right.
habits we have, but rather to sit there and construct them to make the best possible life you can for yourself.
Exactly. Right. And I think part of that can be, the strain or the stressors that might be coming up.
Mhm.
Also knowing, like, let's take this seriously and let's see a couples therapist, or let's join a group for parents. And
I
so,
have to interject one thing on there.
yeah.
Please forgive me for, but this is such an important point. What you just said there about just because you talk to a therapist in a counseling session does not mean there's some broken thing in your
Right.
relationship, right? Nobody would say that just because you go and you exercise or you read, it's because of some tragic deficit. It's about making your life better. And
Right.
therapy and great communication with a third party is something that can greatly enhance our lives in so many ways. Just plug for a third party and working through things together.
Yeah, honestly, it's taking it seriously,
Right.
and even if there are a lot of conflicts, it's saying, okay, I'm not going to just put that on the back burner, right?
Right.
I'm going to address it.
Right.
Yeah.
Such a truly great gift to give to ourselves, our relationships, our families, to take them seriously, to work on them, to improve them.
Yes,
Right?
yes. And when I was thinking about the physical health piece, it made me think of endurance, that if you want to be able to run a marathon, if you want to be strong day in and day out, it takes endurance, right? And so I think the only way you can get endurance is by taking your health seriously, so taking your relationship seriously, as well as your
I,
health.
I
Yeah.
I love it that you compared relationship longevity to a marathon, because it is, right?
Yeah, right.
It's so good. It is. It's that you're in this for the long haul. It's going to take some work, and there's
Yes.
going to be harder times and easier times, and it all depends. But in the
Yeah.
end, the process of anytime we work on something, right? We feel so good about it,
Yeah.
right? Generally, like we work to create this. That's a magical place, whether it's
Yeah.
physical health or our relationships.
Yeah. And with your smile, another S, right? I think finding ways to smile, to find humor,
Yeah,
you know, that
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 was,
is
yeah,
that is in no shortage in our house with little kids.
that's great.
But Dr. Bullock, we have come up on the 4:30 here. I can't thank you enough for taking the time with us. I know this is a big thing, and we want to
Yeah.
share with our sync community and this community here in Charleston overall how beneficial our relationships, working on our relationships, can be in our lives, overall, our
Yeah.
well-being. And thank you for being here and taking the questions.
Definitely. Definitely. Our questions now are online, and maybe we could put a worksheet or two up on the related to the sound relationship theory if people want to look at it.
I think that's a great idea. We'll hook it along with this video, and
Awesome.
people can access it there, and as well as any other resources that you might have for people. We'll hook them right up to this, and they can dig
Great.
in.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brian. This was so
Thank
much
you, Dr.
fun.
Bullock. Have a great day.
Okay,
Thanks.
you too. Bye.